and welcome to a review series that's 5 years late to the party, where I, your host, take a look at some of the biggest games and sleeper hits from 5 years ago. For this inaugural episode, I'm going to take a look back at one of the biggest PlayStation exclusive titles of 2016, and the final chapter, so far in the series, Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. But before we get on with the episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if it's your first time here, give this video a like and ring that notification bell so you can stay up to date with each new review. Development began in 2011 after the release of Uncharted 3, helmed by longtime series lead creative director Amy Hennig and game director Justin Richmond. However, by both 2014, both Hennig and Richmond would leave the company, replaced by Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley, both of whom are known for their work on The Last of Us. Released in May of 2016, Uncharted 4 follows on from the critical and commercially successful Uncharted series that debuted on PS3 and continues series protagonist Nathan Drake's globe-trotting, treasure-hunting adventures alongside longtime companions Sully and Elena. Selling more than 8.7 million copies by December of 2016 and over 16 million by quarter 2 of 2021, Uncharted 4 is at the time of this video's release the best-selling exclusive title and the second, beaten out only by Grand Theft Auto 5, no surprises there, overall on PS4. Along with its commercial success, numerous Game of the Year awards as well as awards for design, music and performances found their way to Naughty Dog, as did many perfect or near perfect scores from a wide range of publications, and at the time of the release of this video holds a 93 critical score and an 8.8 user score on Metacritic.
Oh wow, okay cowboy.
If you've played an Uncharted game in the past, then you know roughly what to expect from this one. The combat is very fun to engage in, providing you with a mix of options as to how to take on each group of hired goons the game will throw at you. On lower level settings, you can more or less run and gun your way through each of these instances, but as the difficulty increases, you're forced to plan out your strategy and employ a fair amount of stealth to ensure you succeed. Traversing the landscape of Uncharted 4 is as fun as it ever has been. The parkouring around each area still feels as fresh and innovative as it ever has done, with the addition of the pitting later in the game adding an extra means of pathfinding while climbing up sheer cliff faces. The other new addition to the traversal mechanics in this game is the inclusion of a grapple hook. Much like the Wind Waker's grapple hook, allowing you to hook onto various points in the environment to manoeuvre Drake around hard to reach areas. This was one of the things that stood out to me in the original trailer, and I have to say it's a lot of fun watching Nate swing out over an abyss, struggling to hold on to that rope while reaching out to the relative safety of a nearby ledge. A new addition from a gameplay standpoint is the inclusion of some more open areas, something that previous entries in the series have shied away from. Hasn't really been much opportunity to properly explore a large-scale area before now, but A Thief's End does give the player the opportunity to stray from the main path on a couple of occasions, to a limited extent. Most notably in the King's Bay section of the game, giving you the chance to check out some ruined structures on your way up the side of a volcano. One thing that has been synonymous with the Uncharted series, much like countless other games in the genre, is puzzles, and Uncharted has done a great job of challenging the player with unique and interesting conundrums. From small environmental puzzles that will have the player trying to work out how to traverse an area, to having to dip into Nate's trustworthy adventure diary to unlock the next phase of a globe-spanning treasure hunt. While not always being particularly taxing, there is always a sense of satisfaction and a lovely little dopamine hit that goes along with working each solution out. Alongside this, the standard treasure collecting returns along with the inclusion of optional notes and conversations with other characters helping to flesh out the game's backstory, provides the trophy hunting player with plenty of reasons to return to the game time and time again. Gone this time around are the supernatural enemies. In previous games, Nate has had to fight off some fantastical foes, but aside from one section late on in the game, where Naughty Dog have clearly tried to throw the idea in that something weird is about to go down, Uncharted 4 stays firmly in the realm of reality, at least where the enemies are concerned. I will admit, moving through those caves late on made me feel very uneasy on the first playthrough, mainly due to that expectation that I was about to take on some creepy monsters. The only misstep I feel that Uncharted 4 makes is in the driving sections. You do have a tendency to slide around a fair amount, which is fine when you're off-roading. It does make sense to an extent, but in the one section where you do have a chance to drive on roads, it still feels like you're losing control the same way you do when your car's struggling to gain traction in the mud. Thankfully though, the driving sections are an infrequent detour and tend to be some of the quicker sections of the game. From the outset of the Uncharted series, Naughty Dog have gone to exceptional lengths to ensure that their games stand out from the crowd. The original showcased what could be done with water physics among thieves, gave us some of the most realistic digital snow in gaming, Drake's Deception showed off some extremely impressive sand physics, all on PlayStation 3. The TLDR here is Naughty Dog have gone out of their way to make sure that they are at the top of the game where hard to animate environments are concerned. At several points I found myself just rotating the camera to get a proper look at the game's world. You really get the feeling that if you were to break out of the game's confines, you could just keep walking into the distance, continuing your adventure elsewhere. With Uncharted 4, they have outdone themselves. The water physics are amongst the most impressive I've ever seen. The way the characters interact with the environment is subtle and feels natural. The character models are extremely detailed. You can see stubble on Nate's face in many of the cutscenes. Sam and Nate both pick up cuts and bruises that stick around and heal as the game's story progresses that help add to the realism. Even the NPCs have a fair amount of care and put into their design. The only time it really falls down is in the variation of enemies. It does get a bit copy and paste very early into the game, but what do you expect from a multinational company that supplies mercenary services to the highest bidder? I have a soft spot for the Uncharted games music. And Nate's theme is a top tier theme for me, up there with Legend of Zelda main theme and that one from the Halo 3 menu screen. If you played the game, you know the one I'm talking about. It was a bold choice then for the fourth entry in the series that Naughty Dog would move away from longtime series composer Greg Edmondson onto Henry Jackman and Alex Belcher. On the playthrough I did capture footage for this video, nothing really stands out. Gone is the traditional version of Nate's theme. There is a version of it that's been rearranged, giving it a new lease on life. But in a post-Breath of the Wild world, yes, I am aware this game came out almost a year before Breath of the Wild, I've really grown to appreciate a more subdued score that really lets the story beats and the quieter moments during gameplay breathe. During big action set pieces, the soundtrack elevates itself and helps push the action along and helps to raise the tension during moments where the BPM of my heart was higher than normal. But you will spend more time moving between these sections, so having a score that is nuanced is something I've really learned to appreciate. On top of this, the world sounds phenomenal. It's a masterclass in subtlety. I shouldn't notice the way that Fallout sounds as I brush up against it, unless I'm trying to. Naughty Dog have excelled in crafting a world that feels as though I could step out of my living room and be right there as a part of the action. That's largely in thanks to the sound design. It really does feel like a living, tangible world.
It's good to see you again, Nathan.
Coming into the final entry in Nate's story, I knew as little as I could. I like to be surprised by a new game. I hate knowing too much about something going into it because I'll spend so long looking for every spoilery nugget I've stumbled across ahead of time that I'll miss most of what led up to that point. Now I can't say for certain that I didn't know about Sam. Drake's long lost brother thought dead. But I loved getting to experience their relationship both through flashbacks and the main story. Obviously getting Troy Baker in to star alongside series lead Nolan North was a bit of a masterstroke. The two have an obvious and natural chemistry. There is a very good reason these two are the go-tos for pretty much every video game in the last 15 years. But Uncharted would be nothing without adventure, and here is probably the most personal one to date. This time around, Drake is brought out of retirement after Sam comes back on the scene telling Nate that he was broken out of a Panamanian jail by a drug lord and needs to come up with the treasure of famed pirate Henry Avery. With their old partner Rafe being hot on the case and being backed up by Shoreline, a private mercenary army, the pair are in a race across the globe, taking them from Panama to Scotland to the fabled pirate utopia Libertalia. Now, this being an Uncharted game, things don't go too smoothly for our hero. And while it's not quite a double cross, Sam hasn't been entirely honest with his younger brother. Ultimately though, the two brothers reconcile and are successful in discovering Avery's treasure, but don't come away with the loot. I really wish just for once that Nate had gotten that win finally, but still I suppose at the end of the day the important thing is that he got out alive and reunited with his older brother. At its core, Uncharted 4 very much tells a story of the importance of family ties. We get a fantastic little slice of that family life he's got with Elena early on when he offers to play her at her TV game thing, giving us a chance to play the first level of Crash Bandicoot. Speaking of family, Sam Drake is introduced to us early on in a flashback. Nate's living in an orphanage being chastised by one of the nuns that runs the place. Sam appears and encourages Nate to sneak out. And later in the game, this flashback is revisited, helping to flesh out the two brothers' backstory as they search a house for some of their mother's books. The Uncharted series has always excelled in these more intimate story beats, and getting to see the beginning of Nate's story is absolutely no different. As the story progresses, Nate struggles with the choice between his brother's plight and being honest with his wife. Trying to be a good man at this point feels more important to Nate than discovering a treasure. Avery's treasure itself feels more like a means to an end for him, and the version of Nathan Drake in Uncharted 4 feels more mature and relatable than previous entries as a result. Ultimately, he decides to step away from hunting treasure, opting to live a more quiet life. A reward for making it out of 4 of the biggest adventures in gaming alive. We do get a fantastic epilogue set a short time in the future where you get to play a small section as Nate and Elena's daughter, who discovers her parents' secret former life. Personally, if Naughty Dog ever do decide to reboot the series, I'd love to see Nate take on the Sully role, and we get the chance to play as Cassie on an adventure of her own. If this really is the swan song for Drake and Company, then what a way to go out. From the first moment I stepped into Nate's shoes back in Drake's Fortune through to A Thief's End, I've never been let down by any entry in the main series. There is a very good reason that Sony have arguably had the better run of exclusive titles in recent years. While God of War is a more visceral beast, Uncharted has been the heart of Sony's collection. Compelling to the last moment, Uncharted 4 A Thief's End will have me coming back again and again, as long as I have a PlayStation to fire it up on. So if you've enjoyed this review, as I stated at the top, click subscribe, drop a like on the video, and ring that notification bell. And I'll see you next time.